Welcome to City Life. I'm Beverly Thompson. This month, Durham Police Chief Jose Lopez will be retiring, and the City of Durham will be seeking its next police chief. Joining me to talk about the national search process and what challenges are ahead for Durham's next police chief is City Manager Tom Bonfield. Welcome, Tom, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Beverly.
So, Tom, at the end of December, Chief Lopez will be retiring after 8 years of service, and with his retirement, of course, comes the opportunity to select Durham's next police chief. Since the chief reports directly to you, what are you looking for in the next person?
Well, Beverly, I think I'd start off by saying, in my 38 plus years of service and public service, I don't think there's been a tougher time that police departments have faced in communities. Some of them for good reason, and some of them for some unfair reasons. So when I think about the opportunity for the next police chief, I think that chief is going to step into a very challenging situation, not just in Durham, but in the whole law enforcement, police, community relations realm nationally, as a result of many of the national situations that we've seen. So, in terms of what we're looking for, or what we would be looking for in a police chief, someone certainly who has the experience of working in an urban environment, somebody who has a strong track record of police community relations, somebody who obviously has a lot of law enforcement experience. But at the end of the day, it will be about somebody who we feel can best fit for the Durham community, somebody who can provide great leadership to the fine men and women who work in the Durham Police Department, and relate well with the community.
Well, given that, and especially the total environment that you just mentioned with policing now, do you think it's going to be a challenge to find quality applicants?
Well, I'm very optimistic that we are going to have a very competitive recruitment process. In talking to the consultant that will be helping us, we asked them that question: what should we expect? And they felt that Durham's track record, particularly as a community, was going to be very attractive to applicants from around the country, but in particular probably from within the eastern United States, people who are familiar with Durham. Durham's Police Department has a very good reputation. It is a gold standard CALEA certified organization. So people who are going to be applying for this position are going to do their homework. Certainly they're going to do internet searches and see some of the headline challenges that we have faced. But if they're the caliber of the person that we're going to be looking for, they're also going to dig deeper than that. They're going to find out about what are the resources that are made available to the police department, what are the quality of the individuals who are working in the department, and the national reputation in many respects. So I'm very, very confident that we're going to have a very competitive recruitment process, and at the end of the day, we will find the right individual who's going to be the best fit and do a great job for Durham.
Okay, that's very encouraging, really is. So what are you hearing from City Council and the community as to what they'd like to see in the next police chief?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it goes without saying that the selection of a police chief is probably one of, if not the most important decisions that a city manager makes during their career. I've had the opportunity to appoint 3 police chiefs in my career, and every time there is a very heightened level of interest at the community level, at the elected official level, much more so than any other department position that we would make a selection. So, we understand that. I think the interest in Durham is certainly going to be one that the community wants to have some role and involvement in that process. We'll talk some, I'm sure, as a part of this today about how that might work. We understand that. We don't, we agree with that. It is very important, and quite frankly, for the next police chief to be successful, to hit the ground on the pathway to success, there needs to be an acceptance of the process and understanding that the individual was highly vetted to be compatible with the community. I'm very fortunate that I have a mayor and city council that I work for that have confidence in my decisions, that have confidence in the processes that we've used in the past to hire department directors. And so I know they trust us, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, we recognize that they're going to need to be kept informed of the process, just like the community should and expect to be kept informed of where we are in the process. The other thing I would say, though, is that they're accompanied with that is the notion that this is a personnel matter. And there are certain aspects of personnel processes that have some level of privacy or confidentiality. And so I'm sure there are some members of the public who will want every step of this process to be completely transparent and public. And that's just not practical. For us to recruit the highest caliber candidate, we need to, particularly early in the process, once we get the community feedback, have an opportunity to vet a wide range of candidates without everyone being exposed. But once we get down to the, closer down to the end of the process and we're starting to narrow down the choices, then that's the opportunity certainly for there to be some opportunity for community vetting, and we can talk about that as well.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned the search process then. So how will it be conducted?
So at this point, the city just recently has wrapped up its evaluation of search consultants. We opened up the opportunity for consulting firms who are specialists in this field to give us their proposals. I believe we had 7 or 8 proposals come in from firms all over the country. We evaluated those. We narrowed it down to the 3 different firms. But at the end of the day, as it turns out, and it really wasn't planned this way necessarily, we chose the Durham company. Developmental Associates is the search consulting firm that we will be using. Dr. Stephen Strauss is the head of that firm. Dr. Strauss and the Development Associates has had a great track record of recruiting very high quality department level people. Most recently, as it relates to police officials, they conducted the search in Winston-Salem and Greensboro for the police chiefs there. Coincidentally, they also conducted the search for the executive director of the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority in the last couple of years, as well as the Triangle J Regional Planning Council. So they have a very sophisticated process that we'll talk some about, but they also have a great network and certainly tremendous experience in law enforcement in North Carolina, principally.
I was going to ask you about that, but it sounds like they are very familiar with this area, being from Durham and having conducted searches.
That's right.
Here in Durham,
and North Carolina in particular. I mean, I think they have contacts and connections throughout the southeastern United States, but the searches that they conducted in, for example, when we did the background in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, they brought candidates from all over the country. They were able to attract very high caliber candidates from all over the country. So I'm confident that they'll do a great job for us.
Great. So what types of opportunities will Durham residents and other interest groups, how would they weigh in on who is selected? I know that's very important to you.
Yeah, right, it is. And to start, at the beginning of the process and over the first several weeks in December, we are going to host, Dr. Strauss is going to host a variety of opportunities for input, both within the police department, which is critically important, and within the community. So within the police department, there'll be opportunities for some small focus group feedback sessions, as well as some opportunities for maybe some larger group sessions. And then within the community, we also will have some selected focus group discussions, as well as community forums. We're anticipating holding 2 community forums. One community forum will be an English-based forum, and the second one will be a Spanish-based forum. We think it's very important that we reach out to the Hispanic Latino community in Durham and actively involve them in the process as well. So that's the beginning of the process. At the end of the process, like I said, I anticipate that as we move closer to narrowing candidates down to the final few, that we will design an opportunity for there to be some engagement with the community, some Q&A with the community, that type of experience. Don't exactly have all of the what it's going to look like or the date, but I am committed to having that happen with the community. It's important that the candidates know that potentially would happen right up front. So as they apply, I want them to know that at some point we're going to want their names to be exposed to the community as a part of the process.
So that's a lot of actions to happen in a short time, it seems. But what is your time frame for all of this?
So at this point, as we wrap up Thanksgiving and the 1st of December, for the first couple of weeks in December, I expect that we will be having the community input sessions as well as the input sessions with the police department, with the executive team and those kinds of things, so that the final position profile will be finalized. We'll probably formally begin the advertising recruitment process mid-December. I would expect that that would take place over about a 30-day, maybe 45-day period, so sometime through, say, mid-January, Dr. Martin Luther King birthday weekend type thing, that we would be recruiting, accepting applications. Then at the end of January, early February, there would be an initial vetting process of the candidates. Following that, we would begin the winnowing process to shortlist a group. Once we get down to a narrower list, then there'll be extensive Q&A. The consultant would do extensive Q&As with those individuals to understand, philosophies and ideas. Would begin to do more extensive background checks, those types of things. And then as we got into sometime in March, I believe, we probably would be in a position of having running an assessment center, which we certainly intend to use as a part of that validation process of a smaller group. Again, then realistically, we're probably into the end of March before we would have any public process or decision. But my goal is still that we would have a decision made by April 1st, and certainly depending on the circumstance, because there's always an opportunity for an internal candidate to be considered as well, but depending on the circumstance, that it might be realistically the 1st of May before the new chief would physically be on board and in the office. I mean, anything could happen that might shorten that a little bit or lengthen it, because we are committed, and I am committed, to finding the right candidate for this position. And if it takes a little bit longer than that, I'm willing to wait to keep working at it to make sure we make the right decision.
So is this process pretty typical?
Well, I mean, we, as a part of the research that we did in walking up to this decision, we looked at how a number of communities approached the selection of a police chief. Again, I said it is a highly critical position to be filled, obviously, but one that has significant community interest. And so we looked for that balance between what is it that can have the community be engaged both at the beginning and the end, but also allow us a professional HR process to vet candidates, to run assessment centers, those kinds of things, and really be sure that we're fully evaluating and considering all of the components, all of the attributes that candidates can bring to the table.
So since Chief Lopez's last day is he officially retires, I'll put it that way, in December, have you decided who's going to be the interim
Well,
chief
at this
yet?
point, no decision has been made. I expect that we will have an announcement of that in early December, maybe even by the time that this show airs through the month of December, that decision will be made. But as it stands today, as we're sitting here, no final decision has been made about that.
Yet. Okay, and I'm certain, and you mentioned the current officers wanting to be part of the process, and they're going to be closely watching the whole process. Have they shared with you any ideas or any concerns they might have about what they'd like to see in the next chief?
Yeah, at this point, no. It has been a situation where we've transitioned through Chief Lopez's, retirement transition, and didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, particularly because I want the consultant developmental associates to be actively involved in hearing that. I don't want to be the translator of that information from the police department. As I've said, I know this has been an incredibly challenging couple of years for the law enforcement officers who do a great job for the city. Both in terms of some of the things that are going on locally as well as nationally. They've had a lot of criticisms put at them, and at the same time they have done and continue to do just a remarkable job. But it is important that they be as much a part of this process as the community is a part of this process. And I'm optimistic in talking to the officers that I have talked to, that they are ready to be a part of that process and ready to be great contributors. And I'm very confident we'll welcome the new chief when that occurs, and continue to provide great service for the community.
Okay, so Tom, once the new chief is hired, he or she might be leading or will be leading one of the most highly visible cities in the state. So what are you seeing as some of the most pressing challenges that you need to see tackled first? and what are some of the good things that you feel need to be continued?
Well, starting with the good things, as I've said, like for example, the police department, not only the uniformed folks that are out doing great work and responding to calls and all those kinds of things are phenomenal, but the city does have the police department does have other great programs. Our forensic unit is nationally certified and recognized. All of our information technology groups have been nationally recognized in terms of the crime stats and all of those those parts of the organization. So we have so many great components that are certainly going to be out. But at the same time, the challenges that we face in the community, the increase in violent crime. Just Monday night, we reported to the council that through the first three quarters of the year, violent crime is up 16% in Durham. That's above the 14% it was up last year. So we know that's a huge issue. The police department can't be totally responsible for that, but the police chief, the new police chief, and the police department will certainly need to be engaged around the violent crime issue. Police community relations, same thing. That's an area that we've had some challenges. The surveys haven't shown us in the greatest light of where we'd like to be in terms of positive police community relations. So we know that there will need to be emphasis there. Again, it can't just be the police department who's figuring that out. We need we need buy-in, but those will be big issues. And at the same time, I don't think we should back away from some of the challenges that we haven't been able to explain. Some of the traffic stop data, some of the marijuana arrests, and some of the other pieces that have we've been challenged to be sure that we are conducting ourselves in a fair and impartial way, and that we are providing proactive and positive responsive police services, but at the same time that there is a police legitimacy, so to speak, and a social justice component that accompanies that. It is a balance. It's really important. As I've said, I can't imagine a more challenging time for a police officer or a police chief, but at the same time, it is a reliance that we all must have for a civilized society to have a police department and a police force that is highly functioning and highly relates to the community. That's what we're going to have.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sure our viewers will want information about the process in the coming weeks. How do they find out more information?
Well, we're going to rely on the city's public affairs department to do a great job, as you always do, to help get the word out. I'm committed to be transparent to the process. We will have make announcements from at the beginning of the process, what the entirety of the process is, but also every step of the way as we've moved to the next step. I want to try to be as transparent as we can to communicate with the public, with the media, where they are. And again, I know we probably it won't be too difficult to keep people's attention in this regard, or keep the media's attention, but we're up to the challenge.
Great, sounds good. Finally, are there any closing thoughts you'd like to leave?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'd like to thank Chief Lopez for his service to the community. He has been the police chief for 8 years. I think the longest serving police chief in any recent history of Durham, and I think just as it relates to probably national standards of tenure police chiefs, it's a tough job, and that 8 years of service has done well. Certainly want to wish him and his wife well in their future endeavors, but at the same time, just continue to say that that we have a great police department. As I've said about our organization, it ain't all about the city manager. Just like the police department, it's not all about the police chief. There are 600 or more men and women who do a fantastic job in the police department every day, and I'm confident as we go through this transition over the next several months, and as we go through the transition of a new chief coming on board, that they will have the backing and support of the police department, and the work that needs to be done in the community will continue to be done at the level that the community expects and deserves.
Great. Tom, thank you so much for joining us to
My pleasure.
talk about this very important topic.
Thank
very
you.
timely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Well, that does it for City Life. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and watch us on Durham Television Network and on YouTube. Plus, stay right where you are to get a sneak peek at what's to come in the next edition of Durham Magazine. I'm Beverly Thompson. Thank you for joining me to learn more about city life in Durham.
This has been a production of Durham Television Network.
Hi everyone! Be sure to check out Durham Magazine's October-November issue. If you've been wondering what the construction is all about at the 300 East Main building, the former Durham Health Services facility near Old Havana Sandwich Shop downtown, you're not alone. We introduced you to the couple who's renovating it with plans to live on the top floor and turn the other 3 levels into office space for entrepreneurs. Plus, our guide to downtown living tells you everything you need to know if you're considering moving toward the center of the city, whether you're seeking to rent or own. As part of our design issue coverage, we highlight Sevlin, makers of leather bags and belts, retailer Varon Vogue, potter Matt Halliburton, the Durham artist whose works are on display at the new 21C Hotel, the team behind downtown's new civil rights mural, and the talented folks who compose the Durham Craft Market. We asked Pizzeria Toro's Gray Brooks to host Thanksgiving dinner for his family and friends a bit early, and he happily agreed. This Chef at Home feature includes some of his most beloved family recipes. You can find copies of Durham Magazine all over the city for free at grocery stores, coffee shops, boutiques, bookstores, and more. Or you can subscribe by going to durhammag.com. You can also read the entire issue online via our website. Thank you, as always, for reading Durham Magazine.